Welcome to the Gig Econ Show. I'm Bill Davis.
I'm Zane Miller.
And I'm Callan Dunn.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining. This is going to be our introductory show. So we don't have a guest per se, but we're going to go through, what we're going to be doing in the show, what you're going to be learning, what the format is, kind of possible topics, and we'll go from there. And we're going to take feedback. So, right now, because you're watching, you have a lot of leeway and a lot of leverage in saying, hey guys, I'd like to see this, or I'd like to see that, or I'd like to know more about this. So what we're going to try to do is take your feedback, take your suggestions, and incorporate them into the show. So what I'd like to do is start off with our introduction, which is our segment one, and I'll talk about the format first, and then we'll talk about how we're going to get into this. And Callan and Zane are going to chime in as well.
Sure.
We're going to, right now, the format is roughly 4 segments, and they're going to be 5 minutes for an intro, 5 to 10 minutes for an intro, and then we're going to have 2 content-based segments in the middle, each about 15 to 20 minutes long. And then we're going to have a close that's 5 to 10 minutes. So right now, this is our intro, and we're 2 minutes in, so we have 3 minutes to spare. And we're not going to, it's not hard and fast. It's going to be, we're going to flow through this thing, but the bulk of the content, the stuff, the reason you came here is going to be in those 2 middle segments that are 15 to 20 minutes each. So all told, this show should last 45 minutes to an hour. And we'll see how that goes. So you guys have anything to add on that?
Yeah. I'll go ahead and jump in, especially because Callan's our comment steerer, coordinator, person, whatever. As far as an intro, my name is Zane Miller. If you want to know more about where I started, you can check out the previous episode, our origin story. There's a little bit more there. But if you haven't, just a little bit about me without going deep into my roots. I jumped onto the YouTube marketing bandwagon when people were still like, wait, you want to use that website where people watch cat videos? And my favorite thing, because whenever I'd say, yeah, I'm going to do a YouTube thing, try and do marketing on that, they would say, oh, is it the thing where you watch this? You could always tell what people watched because they would be secretly telling you, this is what I watch on YouTube, because this was, before anybody even realized the true power of YouTube. I mean, there was even an episode on South Park. Do you guys remember what I'm talking about? Where a view was compared to a hypothetical dollar. So throughout the entire episode of South Park, it was just like, oh yeah, I have $1 million hypothetical dollars, and they would just keep saying hypothetical dollars and so on and so forth. But then people started making money to the tune of like 6 and 7 figures, but not who you'd expect. One of my favorite ones was somebody was doing tutorials about making rainbow looms, and it was a 15-year-old kid who made so much money in the revenue share split that they were able to pay off their parents' house in 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and they were doing videos about making rainbow looms. It was the weirdest side hustle thing that ever existed. And I still didn't get it. I was still one of those guys, like, I had started YouTube. Like if you look at YouTube now, and then if you started 10 years ago, I actually started with a video game channel. And then I buckled under the pressure of like, oh, okay, well, that's nice, but how do you actually like make money with it? And so I sidestepped. I buckled under the pressure because I was like, oh, right, yeah, who would watch video game videos? I mean, I'm laughing now, but somebody in 2008 would be like, yeah, dude, find a career. And then, but I kind of did. I found my own little niche because I was able to figure out how to actually get viewers to go from a video to a website, and that was actually pretty hard. Like if you were good at entertaining people, you could keep them on YouTube, but there wasn't the monetization platform. I mean, I was there before it was cool, and it was still super lame. But I took all my time, and instead of trying to build my channel, I focused on creating a framework to get people to actually leverage YouTube and then help businesses and build their channels. So I didn't really ever have a channel of my own. I was all about being the executive producer, the guy behind the scenes, the person who was sort of steering the boat from the back of the boat that you never heard of, because I believe that it was somebody's job, at least in my mind. If you were going to help a business, you didn't sit there and start touting yourself the whole time. You said, okay, this is their thing, and that's what I focused on. But now, with the competition as high as it is, more and more people behind the scenes are required now that YouTube is the new TV. And nowadays, there's even websites like TikTok and things like that are like the new shiny thing that distracts you from YouTube. And it's the oh, well, we should check this thing out because YouTube's all old hat. No, it's not old hat. It's just been acclimated so much that it's now the new TV. Like they have won the war. YouTube is TV. That's it. But now it's time to start playing with things like TikTok and Roku and Amazon, all that other kind of stuff. If you guys want to know more about it, I'd be happy to. But I don't want to steal the show already. I just wanted to take some pressure off of Bill, because I know what it's like being the guy steering the boat and being like, okay, let's jump into this. And you're like, oh, what else do I talk about? So without taking too much time, that's me in my intro to give some perspective of where I sit in this. I'm not only just a host, but I'm also the guy who's like, all right, camera one, camera two, let's put this over here. So there you go. Thanks for having me, guys.
Cool. Thank you. Kellen,
Yeah. And again, we all went through kind of a more in-depth origin story on the last episode, kind of where we announced that this was going to be happening. But my name's Callan Don. I'm a Facebook ad specialist to help a lot of local businesses and small businesses learn to market online, primarily concentrated on bringing businesses that don't know how to market or aren't in the online space and bringing them into the 21st century, getting them set up with their websites, copywriting, funnels, emails. Basically, it runs the gamut if it has to do with advertising, pretty much with the exception of YouTube, which is how me and Zane met. That's what I do. And then also kind of throughout the course of the show, I'll be monitoring comments and taking feedback from you guys, and just kind of watching to make sure that as we continue to go and these two get talking and in a flow, that we don't completely ignore you guys for no good reason. So I'll be talking with you guys in comments. So please feel free to just shout anything out that comes to mind. And if it's pertinent, I'll interrupt them and I'll make them listen to you.
Cool. And what Kellen said at the very beginning is something that you guys should take to heart. And that is, learn as much as you can, whatever you have an appetite for. But when you find gaps, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but when you find gaps in your knowledge or your tool set or your, information, expertise, skills, there are ways to fill the gaps, and there's always ways to fill the gaps with people. So if you don't have like YouTube ad skills and you think that you need them, you can either go do the training, or you can bring somebody on who already knows how to do all that stuff. It's really kind of one of those things that you have to weigh the benefits versus the costs, but you can always fill a gap with people. Like, for example, sometimes you want to automate stuff, but you can't, so you hire a VA, at a much lower hourly rate than it would cost you to do it. So just that's a little takeaway. So a little gem right there.
Well said.
All right,
so, nuggets early.
Yeah. So let's step into segment 2, and let's just talk about possible topics that we're going to cover in subsequent shows, and we might even touch on one here. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying. You may have already been starting to say it. but we've already talked about it just a little bit. Hobbies into hustles, right? That just would seem like a cool way to put it. And I was like, well, I don't know if we can necessarily say we've coined it, but we're definitely going to start coining it, right?
Yeah. One of the things that market leaders do, and we're not market leaders yet, but we're going to be. One thing that market leaders do is they define their own lingo. So, I was pounding out the show agenda this afternoon to submit to the two guys here for their review and feedback, and I was writing things down and I'll just list them out: author, public domain, art, photography, blogging, ride sharing, domain flipping, consulting, salvage, repair and resell, e-commerce, email and affiliate marketing. And the thought came to my mind: turning hobbies into hustles. So one of the things that we all want to do, or gives us some pleasure, is our hobbies. And if we could turn our hobbies into hustles or into gigs, that's great, right? So yeah, Zane, thanks for bringing that up, because I think that's pretty good.
Well, there's just so much that's happening right now. There's so much of the gig economy, and these side hustles and things like that due to this pandemic. Again, if you check out the origin story, or episode 0, whatever you want to call it, we talked about it quite a bit more. But as the YouTube guy, the video guy, I've always felt it was my responsibility. If I'm going to plant this flag and say I'm this guy, then there's a lot of other stuff that you do behind the scenes, in the sense of, and there's a ton of analogies, but it's, when you see a picture of an iceberg, right, you only see a little tiny bit of it, and there's just a whole bunch more underneath. And I believe if you're going to be a marketer that plants a flag with a certain amount of technology, like YouTube, that's connected to video, which is connected to performing, which is connected to so much other stuff, you should be ready and have that deeper knowledge. So I've never watched YouTube in a passive way. I've always analyzed, I've always looked and studied. And you know what I've seen because of this pandemic? All of these hobbies are turning into hustles because of the nature of this pandemic beast. You see all of these professionals sort of, like they're trying to close off their personal lives and their hobbies and stuff like that to stay professional, right? But this is forced. The pandemic has forced their personal lives open to show these little side hustles and these hobbies and things like that. But that's sort of what happens all the time. We've all heard stories over and over again about how hobbies, it was this unassuming thing, and all of a sudden now they're the head of this major corporation that just started with this hobby. I think there are going to be so many inadvertent hustles created because people were sort of shoved into this, instead of like, well, I finally decided to step out and do it. No, we're going to see like 5-10 years from now. It's like, well, you remember that pandemic thing? This led to this, led to this, led to this. And almost by accident, hobbies are going to turn into hustles.
And I think it's really something that's worth noting. When I very first got into marketing, one of the things that I learned immediately was to specifically not wall off my personal life, to make it known what hobbies that I'm into. And, I may not tout religious or political views for very obvious reasons, but even that has some notoriety to it, right? You want to be prolific.
Yeah.
You don't want to be extreme, but you can't be neutral. So being neutral just kind of remains to a point where everybody ignores you, where you're prolific to the point where, whatever your hobbies are. I like to brew beer. I like to play video games. I build video games. Those are things that people can connect with me over, beyond just the fact that I'm marketing a product and a service. They can get to me on a personal level as they begin to follow my journey through marketing as well as these other things that are happening in my life. And it creates much tighter bonds with my community. And it's something that you can develop trust over as a marketer.
Speaking of which, why don't you? I think I see something right here on Callan's shirt there. Something that was a hobby that turned into a hustle, right?
It did.
This wasn't intentional. I saw the shirt and I was like, "Ooh, yay!" Yeah, I mean, I am familiar, but maybe you tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's a website that I put together for people that like to brew or like to drink craft beer. And traditionally, brewing is a very lonely hobby, while drinking is a very social hobby. So I wanted to mix the two of them together and get people that love to brew to be able to brew in a way that's social, just like you would do it if you were drinking. So then we blend the two. So the people that drink can meet with the people that brew. They maybe learn how to do it from somebody who's doing it, where you learn to brew together, or two people that love to brew together, and they get together side by side with their equipment and make a batch of something, sometimes the same thing, maybe two different things, and they just do it, have some beer, and just enjoy themselves while they're doing it. It's a 4 to 6 hour experience when you brew a beer. So doing that alone can tend to just kind of be like, great, I'm doing this, it's fun, I love it. But I wish there were 3 or 4 other people, just have a good time. And it changes things when you get 4 guys around a brew pot, and everybody's kind of pitching in, just sort of doing things, and you can laugh and have a good time. And there's some time where you're literally just watching the thing boil, so you can work into it. And that worked into having the website set up to be able to have people that love craft beer meet for bottle shares and different things like that, where they can just discuss how things taste and what they like and what they don't like, maybe swap different rare things that they've been able to find that other people want to try. One of the great things about that community is a lot of people love to try different things and just kind of explore the flavors. So I figure we encourage that in addition to all of the social aspect of everything that's going on.
Cool. I like that. So you truly did turn a hobby into a hustle.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's fun, and if it's not fun, it's hard to sustain. So
because there's so much work. I mean, and that's something I think we need to make sure that we highlight and be right up front about, is that if you're going to turn a hobby into a hustle, it's going to be work. You're not just going to start having fun and then all of a sudden money rolls in out of nowhere. I mean, you might, but the chances of that happening are much smaller than needing to hustle and work and learn some new skills, build it along the way.
Yeah, Zane and I were talking about that a week or two ago about, it all comes down to you got to do the work. Now, I know a lot of people, and I'm included, who are somewhat lazy. We work in bursts of energy, but most of the time we're not really doing a lot. But, this is always going, right?
Yeah.
But you do have to do the work, and maybe you don't have to do the work and you can outsource it, but I've never found that model to be like 100% sustainable.
Yeah, outsourcing has its own amount of work, right?
It does. You change from a doer, which you might be capable of doing, to a manager, and sometimes it just takes more time to get the ball rolling from a VA perspective, and it may take so much time that the project is over before you had trained somebody. So it's tough. But it's certainly a tool that you could put in your toolbox.
Well, in figuring out the things that you do want to outsource is a whole topic all in itself.
Yeah,
that could be an episode.
You don't want to be outsourcing really specialized skills that you have.
right.
If you start working at as a hobby and you're reliant on those skills, and the skills are really part of your brand, and then you start outsourcing those to a VA, where did your brand go?
I watch that happen all the time.
Either the work doesn't come out the quality that you would expect and like, and you're never going to have a VA that stays around because they're going to do work and you're going to complain and then they're going to leave, or you're going to fire them. And then you're going to keep repeating that cycle until you find somebody that has the skills you have. And then that's a dangerous game all in itself.
Right.
If you get these VAs that come on to work and they have all of the skills that are required to do what you're doing, and they say, man, this is kind of cool. This guy's or this girl is doing these things with these skills. I have all of these skills. See you later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What NCND? I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. And I'm not saying that you should be afraid that people are going to steal your ideas, because there's enough ideas to go around, and the execution is really where the key is. You could have two of the same ideas side by side and executed differently, and one's going to succeed and one is not going to succeed.
Also well said. Yeah.
But at the same time, if you're outsourcing the important portions of your business, where the parts that are really building your brand identity, you're asking for trouble. You're almost begging for it.
Yeah, you don't want to outsource the stuff that's mission critical. You want to outsource. It's opportunity costs. Like, if you can trade doing a menial task with a VA in return for using that time that you now have back, to do something that actually generates revenue or builds your business or builds your brand or what have you, that's the way you want to do it. You don't want to outsource stuff that's like mission critical, or that doesn't return time to you so that you can get the really important stuff done.
And I think a really good way to put this, and probably the best way I've heard, it's not just the stuff in your business that you maybe consider outsourcing. It might be things in your personal life that you outsource to a VA so you can do business.
Yeah.
Well said. The best way I've heard it put is rich people don't mow their own lawn.
Right.
Because it costs them too much to mow their lawn. Yeah. If their time is worth $2,000 an hour, because that's what it's worth when they're out there prospecting and closing business, then if they were to spend $1,000 an hour on a VA, they're making profit by hiring the VA for $1,000.
Right.
Or if
that'd be one lucky lawn person. But
well, at the same time, it's not just the
point.
Yeah, it's also the same thing. This is something I've had to teach myself, is outsourcing those personal tasks as well, so that you can also take the time to, in a sense, recharge. Do the work that you need to do, so that you're not always working 24/7, but you should put the same amount of work effort into revitalizing yourself or getting things moving. You see what I'm saying? Like, I one of my favorite books, a book that I swear to, is called The 12-Week Year, and they talk about and it's time management to the core, and really it talks about, all right, so you're going to just put things into time blocks. So now, instead of just, you have free time, you're just doing things intentional. So you do things called breakout blocks. And this is X amount of time that's reserved to make sure my business keeps running. So instead of just going, well, I mean, just do whatever, you're saying, no, I'm going to spend 3 hours recharging. I'm going to go to the gym, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. But it's all meant for one specific intentional purpose, to help you do better, so that when you go into the focus block, which is like, an hour of work, the breakout block, the previous 3 hours led up to that point. So you were ready, poised, and ready to go. And you weren't out mowing your lawn, right? You were focused on tasks that made sure that you could be focused and be at your peak when it was time to work.
Very good. Very good. Totally agree. I'm the poster boy for running himself into the ground after 5 years plus. I wound up in the hospital quite a few years ago because I was just exhausted, and it led to health issues that you don't want to do that. You don't want to spend New Year's Eve in the hospital, and it wasn't because you were working too hard. All right. So I think we should jump into the next segment. We'll talk about what we were going to talk about in the last segment on a future show, because I think it's going to take a lot of time to talk through it, and I think it'll also give us some time to actually maybe build the start or the beginning of a case study for you to show you one side hustle, one thing you could do that will generate some money that doesn't take a lot of, doesn't take too much effort. So that's a little teaser for us, a future show. I want to talk real. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said dun dun dun.
I want to talk a little bit about the show's schedule. So as we start filling up time slots, so just to reiterate, the GigEcon show is every Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific. Hopefully it's come rain or shine, and whether we can all make it or not, the show's going to go on.
Show must go on.
As we're filling up time slots, we're gonna publish a calendar out on the website, which is gig-economics.com. We'll show you where that is
a little down below.
And what we can do is show you what's coming ahead. So it's kind of like your own personal TV listing for this show. So moving on, we went over this in the last episode, which was, as Zane said, episode 0. And it's how do you get started in the gig economy? And before you can even answer that, it's like, well, what is the gig economy? A lot of people don't know what it is. And some people have an idea of what it is. They think Uber and Lyft and, takeout taxi and, personal service type stuff. And it is those things and more. So it really is, when we talk about the gig economy, we're talking about a new way to work outside the world of the job. There's nothing wrong with having a job, but if you want to really, kind of discover some personal freedom, eventually our hope is that your hobby that turned into a hustle turns into a business. But you can keep your job and you could do your side hustle as a hobby, and that's cool too. But in any of these endeavors with respect to a gig economy, the idea is that you create your own work that fills a need, provides a solution, relieves some pain, or gives some pleasure. And that's kind of where you start. And subsequent to that, we have a saying that we stole, and we'll attribute that to the person who said it in a minute. But it's start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And that comes from an old tennis pro. He was very good. His name was Arthur Ashe. And what that really means to us is that you have skills and experiences, right? Everybody does. That when combined with passion, again, that hobby, you really like to do it, can guide you into small ventures that earn you money that you can then scale if you want to. That's the whole idea behind the gig economy, is it gives you freedom. And most of the freedom is time. But money also buys you freedom, in a sense. If you're having to work 2 part-time jobs that pay minimum wage, that's a lot more difficult than having a full-time job that pays minimum wage, along with a side hustle or a gig that is a hobby that gives you pleasure. Maybe it fulfills you, and you can help people, and you can get paid. So, anybody want to add on to that?
Yeah, I'll jump in here because I got a couple of things. I'm gonna try and rapid fire this to save time and connect it all together. One of the I am as many people have put it, a serial entrepreneur. You can check more of that out in episode 0. But I didn't really know what an entrepreneur was, but basically from birth, it was in my genes, and I've always been about it. To the point you might as well call me a gigomaniac, right? So, but here's the point. I was always looking for the business how business connected things. That's I think the major point that should be the deviate. You don't just look for like let's look for anything and everything. No. See where they connect. See how deep the iceberg goes. You don't. An iceberg isn't like this gigantic sprawled out thing. No, it's a big gigantic chunk, and it's under the water. It's deep and it's thick, right? So the advice that goes with this is, when you can see an opportunity, see where other opportunities naturally flow. I even actually did a video about this on our YouTube channel that you can check out, because you might be watching this on Facebook, you might be watching it on YouTube. But part of the thing that I do with my video marketing, online video nerd typeness, is taking what we do and making sure it permeates through most of the internet. So you might not even be watching this on Facebook. You might be watching this maybe on Roku or something like that. You never know. But my point is as I'm trying to steer through this, you want to find where things naturally connect, because that's where more of the money is made. And you want to think in business terms, because when I first got it started, it wasn't just me as a kid, and I wasn't some sort of business savant or anything like that. I had family members, aunts and uncles. I come from a very big family, so there was a whole bunch of opportunities for me to observe other people. And what they did was they started a business, because America was based on the freedom of having a business. And one of the best things that you can do, apart from having a family and having a mortgage, is also having a business. You get so many tax write-offs for having a mortgage, a family, and a business. If you don't have the business part, you are missing out on so many tax benefits and things like that. Just if you hang the shingle of I have a business, there are so many things that you can benefit from, for your family, for your mortgage, for all of those things. And you don't even have to do a very good job at the business. You could do horribly and then say, I didn't make any money, and still have a huge amount of benefits, right? So be focused on a business, but also be a gigomaniac that figures out how things are connected. And Bill, you also understand this when you talk about having a funnel when it comes to affiliate marketing and doing webinars and stuff. There are different pieces that are recommended, but then you have this thing called the profit maximizer, right? When you're trying to leverage your list and your funnel and things like this. And folks, if you are confused about any of this, if this is whooshing over your head, please say something in the comments, and we'll make sure and address it in later episodes and stuff, because I'm doing a 50,000 foot view of a lot of stuff just so I can grab this one point. I swear I'm almost done. But focus on things that are all connected, because that's when you're going to find the biggest profit maximizers. So then even when you fail, I'm not saying that you will, but even if you do fail, you're going to succeed. Because even if you have to write everything off as a loss, everything is going to come back and help you in the long run, just based on how our country works. And not just the United States, but there are many, many, many countries. If you're watching from an island in the South Seas or something like that, there are still benefits. There are always benefits to having a business. So just to circle back, make sure and focus on things that connect together if you're going to have a hobby, and look for opportunities where you can save time and money through the already connected network of businesses that your country already provides, and leverage that to the hilt as much as you possibly can. But don't waste your time trying to have the most obscure any job and every job. If you want some kind of point of reference, I have a video where I even talked about how I made $500 in a single day. Wasn't even attempting it, wasn't even trying like, oh, I'm going to make this money. Like a lot of people, like, I'm just going to will it to happen. No, it just happened. But it was because my gigomaniac focus was to take a handful of things that were similarly connected, and all had their own reasons for doing that. But when they were all connected together, it was this huge profit maximizing thing that by the end of the day, with very, very little effort, mind you, I'd made $500. I'm good. That's it.
That's great. And this is when we throw out the the big flashing red lights disclaimer. We're not tax accountants, so don't take our
Talk to a tax advisor. Yeah.
advice. But I mean, yes, having a business. So when you turn a hobby that you might be getting paid for right now, like you do wedding photography for your friends and they pay you a little bit, technically you need to claim that income. Well, if it's a business, you can also claim your expenses. And in a lot of cases, it becomes a wash, or you lost money because you know what? Hey, I bought a new camera this year. It's part of my business. I spent $5,000 on it, or whatever it happens to be. You bought a high-end, camera, but you only made $2,000 in revenue. Well, guess what? You get to write off a lot of that. So again, not tax advice and or any of that kind of thing, but
leverage the tools in front of you. Yeah.
But yeah, Zane made really good points. So yeah,
I think it's really important. I think Zane, you and I have talked about this, and it all ties in. That I found over the course of my personal entrepreneurial journey that I built skills with each different gig that I took on. Everything I tried to do and start, and even if it wasn't successful to the point that I wanted it to be successful, even if I didn't. If I wasn't able to step out of my job and doing that full time, I still learned valuable skills that I was able to pull forward to the next gig. So as I continued on the journey, the gigs were able to get more and more complicated, more and more specialized, and able to command higher and higher fees from those gigs as we go. You start out as a basic gig. You think back to maybe being a teenager wanting to earn some extra money. You learn how to mow a lawn. Well, you can't get paid a ton for mowing a lawn. You can get paid quite a bit for mowing a bunch of lawns.
Well, unless you find that really rich guy who's going to pay you $1,000.
Right. Exactly. You find that guy that makes $2,000 by paying you $1,000 to mow the lawn, and he's got a tiny yard. But you learn several skills over the course of organizing several bits of work, right? You learn to schedule that work, you learn to acquire clients, different things like that. So now we move on to, the next gig. Also in some parts of the country, it's very seasonal work. Here in Michigan, we're covered in snow for more year than we are, having green grass.
Right.
So then you say, okay, well, that's great. My business is seasonal. Now what do I do? Okay, well, now you're shoveling or snow plowing, and it seems like a natural add-on service. So then you have to go back and re-prospect from the clients that you have that you did lawn and say, hey, we do shoveling over the winter. Do you want your sidewalks kept clear and your steps salted and your driveway clean? And so that's a skill, being able to go back to your existing client base, and one that's very lucrative once you start getting into higher end products, where you can keep going back to your clients over and over and over again and keep them with you as you move from gig to gig. So very valuable. And it's not just those things, but just examples of how every bit that you have goes in. I wouldn't be able to operate an agency now for running Facebook ads if at one point I didn't understand learning how to write persuasively. I wouldn't be able to do that if I hadn't done sales prior, and be able to understand human behavior, being able to make those connections, let alone being able to prospect clients without understanding that process of being able to do the prospecting. So I sold insurance for a little while, which did not turn out very well for me. But it taught me a valuable skill that I'm still using today, moving forward in my business, that without it, I couldn't be half of where I've gotten to. So don't be afraid to attack a small gig if it's going to help you learn something or teach you something that you can take forward into another gig. I mean, that's part of the role of freedom. So instead of going to a traditional school to learn this skill, if you can learn this skill by doing it, get paid to learn the skill. and then take it forward to a more lucrative gig.
Oh, yeah.
There's no reason not to.
Right. That's good. It makes me think of another book. I'm not a book person. I listen to audiobooks, but I heard years back, not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers. So I just took a life hack shortcut and went, okay, that just means I need the information in my brain. So I don't want to sit here and read a book. I'm just going to consume information. The information that I'm talking about is a book called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, and it's all about managing the 6 inches between your ears, right? The psychology and whatnot. But one of the biggest things, especially with fellow, what are we calling them,
Maniacs?
Gigamaniacs, yes, right.
It's like Hulkamaniacs.
Yeah. So
rip off our shirt. Look.
Yeah. But no, that's I wanted to jump on that because it's like we need that camaraderie because we all understand, as Colin was saying, the psychology. Because when you start standing on your own, you get what's called resistance hard. And it's hard, and sometimes it takes different forms. And again, we're talking about the 6 inch journey between your ears that takes 1,000 years to take sometimes, and you don't really understand that until you start delving into psychology and turning the scope on yourself. And that's when you realize it's as Pressfield put it, it's not difficult to write. It's sitting down to write that's difficult. So as you start going, well, let's take some gigs and let's put some hobbies, some passion together. Then you start realizing you have your own resistance. You have resistance in your own mind, and it's your lizard brain, the amygdala, the thing that says no. Let's keep things status quo. Things are fine the way they are, and it keeps you alive, and that's fine. But your cerebral cortex, the big part of your brain, that's what wants to explore and see what else is out there. It gets inspired. That's the thing that wants to reach out further and not stop you. A lot of times people call the amygdala the lizard brain. It keeps you primal, and it's also the thing that you default back to. But that's what is also used as a needle, a magnetic needle, to point to your own personal true north. The more resistance that you feel, the more you're like, I shouldn't do that. That makes me kind of nervous. That, like, if you do the opposite of what your amygdala is telling, like, no, don't do that. Don't get out on stage and start performing, or don't do that gig thing. Don't listen to those guys. That's your lizard brain. That's the resistance. So the best way to combat resistance is to make sure and focus on the things that you want, those goals, those dreams, and those desires that you want. So, Callan makes. Are there any skills out there that you guys have? Let's see some comments if you're watching. If you're watching after the fact, let us know in the comments below. What skills do you have? And also maybe throw out, are you, as you think, is there some resistance that you're feeling, like, oh, maybe I feel a little embarrassed or a little shy? That might be an indicator that you should actually maybe push through that resistance, that pushback that you're getting inside your own head, because going through that, everybody has to, like, whether you like it or not, you're gonna have to get through it. And that's the only reason why I'm taking a little extra time to sort of emphasize that, because the only way through it is through it, but we got your back, right?
No skill worth learning doesn't come with uncomfortable growth.
That's true. And the thing is, you have more skills than you think you do. So a good exercise to do is take out a blank sheet of paper and write down everything you do, like on a daily basis. What do I do? If you're a parent, you have a lot of skill and a lot of experience dealing with children.
No matter what your children say.
Most people on this planet aren't really crappy parents. The best parents actually think they're crappy parents because they're not perfect. But you know what? In business, you don't have to be perfect. With your kids, maybe you do, to an extent, like that one time you fly off the handle that ruined them forever. That's a bad thing. But You can burn a bridge in business sometimes. Look at me, I've done it. I think we've all done it. You can burn bridges, and I have blown up some bridges, but you can get over that. You can overcome that. What you can't overcome is that, and I think we learn it early on, and it's very difficult to get through, and that is, you're not good enough, or you don't know enough, or the things I do know nobody cares about. Well, this planet is 7.6 billion people, and while not all of them have disposable income, they all have dreams and desires, and they want to learn. They may want to learn something So you don't know until you try. But the other thing is, when you don't have a skill and you're afraid to go out there, like public speaking, you're not a skilled public speaker and it scares the daylights out of you. Well, if you think you're going to have to do that, one way is not to go out there and just do it in front of 1,000 people. One way is to go to a class where you can learn, you can watch, and then you can do. And it's a lot easier that way than going out there for that first time and talking in front of 1,000 people or 100 people or 10 people. I mean, I went through 2 years of college running around the whole public speaking requirement because I didn't want to do it. And I wound up wasting a bunch of time and taking a bunch of different classes to kind of like circumvent that thing. And the first thing I did when I got out of college was I was in a retail job where I had to talk to 100 people a day. Now, it was one-on-one and people weren't necessarily watching me, but the customers were. The ones I was talking to were.
Yeah.
And, you quickly kind of like figure it out, or you figure out that, hey, dude, this is not for me. And one of the big lessons I've learned in my life and in my business is it's important to know what you don't want to do. Because at first, part of my origin story is I started building websites in 1996, back when the web was very, very young. And, it wasn't really a commercial endeavor.
Oh, yeah. And
people would ask me, customers would ask me, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And it would be outside of that scope. And I would say, yes. And 9 times out of 10, that worked.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I went, you know what? I don't really like doing that. I don't really like configuring servers. I don't really like stringing Cat5 cable all night long while you're closed, and this is the only good time to do it. It was lucrative, and it made me money, and it got through. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But at the end of the day, when you're doing better, you can say, you know what? I don't like doing that. I don't want to do that. Yeah. So, but then again, if you're a good connector, you say, hey, you need this. You've asked me for this. I don't do that, but I know somebody who does, and you can get a referral fee. It's almost better sometimes to be the middleman where you don't do the work, where you can have people and bring them together. And that's one gig you can do that doesn't take a lot of skill except good people skills.
That's an entire gig in itself. I mean, and that comes in a few different forms, right? There's people that literally go and get bird dog fees for other businesses that need clients, and they bring them in, they refer them, and then they just go right out and grab the next one. So there's no fulfillment time, right? It's like, got another one, here's your name and number. Got another one, here's the name and number. Got another one, here's the name and number. And then they come back a week later, they say, okay, where's my paycheck? And then you have others that are kind of the same thing, but you really don't think about them in that aspect. Look at headhunters, people that are going into corporations and finding skills, that they're creating databases of skills, and they're placing these people, taking them out of one company and putting them into another. They're literally getting referral fees for connecting businesses with talent.
Well, it happens all the time in real estate, right?
And what are they doing? They are fulfilling a need, and they're providing something that sometimes the end user doesn't even really understand. It's saving them time, the one thing that everybody can't get back.
So remember when we were talking about it at the beginning of the show, and we said there are going to be gaps in your business, things that you don't know how to do or haven't done before, or maybe you don't have the technology to do it. But think about this, and you're kind of turning this on its side or turning it around and looking at it from the back end. When you can fill that gap for somebody else who has that gap, you're providing a service to them. You've just filled a gap yourself. If you identify a gap, people who have these gaps, like entrepreneurs don't always have a lot of time to mow their lawn, for example, right? But you don't mow lawns, but maybe you know a guy who does, or a business who does. You could refer people all day long, and as long as you establish, upfront terms, an agreement with that landscaping company or whatever service you're matching, you're going to be okay. You just once you do 1, 2, 3, 4, you can get the ball rolling. One thing we're going to talk about in a future segment, and it could be way down the line or it could be next week, is the idea of joint ventures. In a joint venture, such as what you see here, you have 3 people who have different skill sets, different sets of experience. We've come together to hopefully build, a cohesive team that can do a whole lot of things, do all the things that we want to do. And the main thing that we want to do is we want to help you do the things you want to do. And so I think if you came out and you said, hey, I have a question about X, Y, or Z, or hey, I have this problem, or I don't have this skill, what do I do? I think we could hook you up or teach you ourselves, or find a resource for you that will help you bridge that gap.
And don't let resistance stop you. Like coming back around, one of the reasons why I brought up the War of Art in the first place was Callan was saying, find if there's something that you need to do, do it. But what I'm saying is, don't let the gray matter in your head, or don't let the amygdala stop you if you start feeling any kind of resistance. Bill said it's a very, very good. It's important to know what you don't want to do. But once you do, don't let yourself stop you just because you're feeling resistance. If you know what you don't want to do, but then you find what it is that you do want to do, and you start making money, and these gigs start performing, don't let anybody, don't let yourself especially stop you from getting in your own way. And again, the only reason why I'm bringing this up is because it will come up. It absolutely will come up. So I'm trying to remove the barrier before it even gets there in your head. But one of my favorite lines in the book, or one of my favorite points, is that the author talks about resistance will bury you if you let it, and the only way to beat resistance is to be more resolute and more steadfast than resistance is. It'll come at you, but just like a bully, when you stand your ground against your own resistance, it will back down, because all it is your own amygdala. It's your own I want to keep you safe, but you're the one in charge. If you want to live intentionally, you say, no, this is it. And you take whatever assignment comes to you if you know that's the thing. He says, I will take any amateur and I will crack him like a walnut. If you turn down assignment A or writing gig B, then that means you're not really willing to stand up against your own resistance. So take the advice from both Bill and Callan. Take the skills that you need and leverage them, and understand what you don't want to do. But once you do know what you want to do, and you find your little collection of gigs that maximizes your profit and your life and gives you all those things, do not let your own resistance stop you. I am speaking from experience.
Absolutely. The absolute biggest thing that creates resistance for 90% of entrepreneurs is fear. Right?
Yeah.
You're the fear of the unknown, the fear of succeeding, the fear of failing, the fear of looking like an idiot, the fear of what other people are going to think. Some of these we claim to ourselves that these are completely, perfectly rational fears, when every fear, no matter what it is rooted in a lot of speculation. Right? You don't know what's coming in the future. You're afraid of what might come.
Yeah.
But by being afraid of, if you're afraid to fail, by being afraid to take the steps you need to succeed, you are forcing yourself to fail. And I get very passionate about the topic of not doing things because of fear, because for a very long time, I spent quite a bit of time feeling like I was grinding and trying to make forward progress, feeling productive, when I was really like Bill, spending two years of college trying to not do public speaking. Just spinning in circles. But what you find is that the thing that you want is always on the other side of fear.
Yep.
Always. You don't ever get to the thing that you want without crossing that fear in learning to deal with it and quash it. Right? You can't go around the fear. You can't tunnel under it. You can't turn backwards and pretend it can't see you and walk backwards through it.
The only way through it is
you got to go through it head on, facing it, saying, I'm not afraid of you anymore. Why? Because I've learned the skills and the confidence that are required in order to get through this and to understand. And then you reach that plateau where you've broken through fear and you're like, great, now I'm invincible. You know what's happening next? There's something else that you're going to be afraid of.
Yeah.
20 years ago, me hates us right now. 20 years ago, it's like, no.
It's going to be every single time that you begin to make forward progress, there's going to be something else for you to be afraid of. The key is not allowing fear to win. The key is putting fear into perspective, creating a plan, understanding what it takes to get through it, getting the skills that are required or leveraging the skills that are required to be able to not have to attempt to skirt around it or do circles and hope fear leaves and try and sneak in while he's closing the door, because it doesn't happen. The only option is through 100 miles an hour, as fast as you can, as hard as you can, and knowing that fear is part of that journey and that it's totally going to be worth it as soon as you finish. Every time. And there's so much reward that comes over conquering each plateau of fear. But then when
it will back down. It will back down if you stand your ground.
And when you're on top of that mountain, once you've accomplished, fear 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, and you look back down and you see the people that are still struggling, that started when you started doing similar things to you, and you go, man, how are they still down there? And then you look up the mountain and you're like, how the hell are they up there?
Yeah.
And the answer is those people didn't conquer their fear down there. And those people have already conquered more fear than you did. That's it. That's the secret. Conquer the fear. Move forward.
So in closing, we have 1 minute and we want to respect your time. So I want to say two things. Number one, face your fears when they're in front of you and you have to get through them, but don't face fears that you don't face. Meaning, if you're afraid of heights and your gig has nothing to do with heights, you don't need to confront that fear. It's a waste of your time. And you know what? You won't get over that fear. I know from experience, I used to wash windows in San Francisco on a high rise and I was afraid of heights. I'm still afraid of heights.
Cool.
So, and I did this for a while.
Yeah.
The last thing is I want to sincerely thank you all for watching, whether it's on the live or on the replay that's going to come out in minutes. But I would like to ask a few things of you. I'd like you to join our Facebook group if you haven't already. And I want you to subscribe to our newsletter and our YouTube channel. And we'll put those links in the comments. And if you're on our email list, we'll let you know when this video and all subsequent videos are available for replay. And one more thing I want to ask, if you can, we're trying to build the group. Share our group link. If you found value in this, share it with other people. Anybody else got anything to say in closing? We're at 9 o'clock.
I'm glad that you weren't afraid to say that, Bill, because it's important. Like, I mean, like a part, yeah, it's a little jokey, but at the same time, that's one of my own fears that I had to overcome. Of, well, I don't want to tout myself too much, and I want to be the guy that's helping somebody else, and oh, don't mind me, I'm just gonna hide, blah. And it's a natural thing, and that's something every day I have to stand up and be like, no, this is what I want to do. I want to help build video empires and stuff like that. So thank you for doing that, because it's just going to be one more building block of that helps me help other people stay strong and focused. And yeah, there we go.
All right.
I really appreciate you guys being here and watching. I hope that you get something out of being here and being a member of the group. We really, really want to help you guys get to your goals, and I hope that you have the tenacity and just the drive to continue to move forward and reach to what you need to do to get there.
Great. So one last thing I want to mention is that we're going to be delivering content through 3 main channels. That's the Facebook group, email, and YouTube. And it's going to be those 3. So if you don't belong to all 3, you're going to miss something. Just going to tell you up front, you're going to miss something. So thanks for watching. Hope to see you next Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific. And we actually have our guest lined up for next week, even though we're just in the very beginning stages. And it's going to be an excellent conversation. And I'll tell you right now, we're probably going to take those 2 middle blocks that we talked about, combine them into one. We might take a break, but it's going to be the same person, the same guest, same topic, and we might even go over an hour because he likes to talk.
Yeah, I think our topic tonight will really feed into that episode too.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.